Hey, everybody, it is Trags, Mike Petralia, back with the latest episode, the latest installment, if you will, of the Jungle Roar podcast, brought to you by our great friends at Prize Picks and the Game Time app, and of course, everyone associated with CLNS Media. My pleasure to welcome back to the pod this week for this installment is one and only James Rapien of BengalsTalk.com. James, how you doing?
I'm good, Trags. How are you, my man?
I actually believe in the Bengals. I don't know what it is, but I think two straight. Maybe it's just the fact that the Bengals string together consecutive wins. Maybe there's reason for optimism. Obviously, they're over two less than average teams in the New York Giants and Cleveland Browns. We all understand that. We all realize that. But I do think there is some substance to the fact that the Bengals have found ways to win ugly on the road against two difficult defenses to score against. And the fact of the matter is, the way the Bengals started 1-4, Joe Burrow's right. You'd rather win ugly than lose pretty.
For sure. I think that's what's so funny. People have struggled the past couple of weeks during the game because it isn't the prettiest, and it doesn't matter. This team just needs to win games right now. We know that they have their flaws, that they have their shortcomings. That's why they started 1-4. And so finding ways to win, it was the only path they had to back to relevance. And they've done that for 2 straight weeks. They were able to do that in a primetime game against a Giants team that was pretty darn confident going into that one. And then you go and win in a place in Cleveland that you hadn't won. And since, I mean, you were covering Tom Brady then. I was working at iHeartMedia as a radio producer. Joe Burrow was at Ohio State. Like the 2017 win over the Browns, a lot of things have changed.
Jamar Chase was in high school.
High school, yes. So when you think of it that way, it's like, okay, well, it was a big win. Even if Cleveland is flawed, even if Cleveland has all these quarterback questions and the drama around them, it doesn't matter. You had to get a win. They got to win. And now you look up and they're 3-4 and they're not out of the hole yet, but they're climbing their way out of it, which is exactly what they needed to do.
I think they're in pretty good position heading into a game that I don't know how to read the Philadelphia Eagles. They are a winning team. They are coming off an emotional return to New York for Saquon Barkley, and he ran all over the aforementioned woebegone New York Giants at MetLife Stadium. I think that the Eagles, if you can control Saquon Barkley, I think you have a very good chance of winning this game because, you know, if you want to put it in the hands of Jalen Hurts, put it in the hands of Jalen Hurts. I think that there are some similarities here between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Baltimore Ravens.
Well, yeah, I'll say this. In the similarity is good luck if you do let Derrick Henry go off. Good luck if you do let Saquon Barkley go off, because then it just makes the game easy, really easy for Jalen Hurts, because the play action game is working. He can use that play action to get A.J. Brown deep. And then if that doesn't work, you have Devontae Smith running across the middle. So it's a tough offense. There are a lot of quality skill players. Obviously, their big three is as good, I would say, as any big three in the league. And I'm saying A.J. Brown plus Saquon Barkley plus Devontae Smith. So yeah, I think it starts there. And Lou Anarumo would probably tell you that too, that it starts with slowing down the run. And if you look at it against the Giants, Saquon had those explosive runs, those long runs. You got to take those away. You can't give those up. If he averages 4.3 a carry, it's got to be because he has 5-yard runs and 4-yard runs, not 2 or 3 60-yard runs that really enhance that average.
And I think the Bengals have done a pretty good job, save the 51-yarder in overtime by Derrick Henry. I think the Bengals have done a very good job against the running games of the Browns. And granted, Nick Chubb was coming back, first game back from his ACL, multiple surgeries. They did a good job against the New York Giants at MetLife Stadium. And again, I thought they did a very good job against Derrick Henry until the overtime run. I think the Bengals and Lou Anarumo have gotten the bodies back in the middle of the defensive line, and that has made all the difference in the world, especially Sheldon Rankins, who picked up his first sack on Sunday.
Yeah, Sheldon Rankins. I was looking for him to make an impact. They're going to need him to continue to make an impact. BJ Hill, since coming back from injury, I think has been awesome. And what a difference it does make to have those guys, because then the guys you were relying on come down a peg, and Chris Jenkins can still make plays. McKinley Jackson can still make plays, but they're not relied on like you would when you were rolling out Lawrence Guy for a bunch of snaps. He was inactive the past couple of weeks, and it's because you have the depth there. You were relying on J. Tufele, inactive against the Browns. And so it just bumps everyone into the role that they need. You can have a quality rotation. I do think that the Rankins Hill combo, that's a solid 1-2. And then you look behind it, it's like, all right, everyone kind of fits their role now, and it makes sense and it lines up a bit more. So I think that they can be a competent unit. I'm not expecting them to be awesome every single week, but is it realistic to think that they can slow down this Eagles offense? I feel much better today than I did 2 weeks ago. That's for sure.
The secondary, and we already mentioned, and you mentioned A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. That concerns me a little bit, but do you think Cam Taylor-Britt has rebounded from his hiccup of weeks 3 and 4?
You would certainly hope, and you need him to continue to play, especially now you don't have Dax Hill, and you have a guy in DJ Turner II who you probably don't want him on A.J. Brown ever because of the size difference, the strength difference.
Purely the size, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's just he's such a different player. And he's going to be able to do that to Cam too. Like, and so you saw Cam against DK Metcalf last year and had a lot of success, but A.J. Brown's different. I mean, he's one of the special receivers, one of the 7 best receivers on the planet. I mean, he's up there. He's very much up there. And so, yeah, finding a way to contain him. I think part of it is going to be safety play too. How they cloud, do they cloud? I'm sure they do, to not give up the big play downfield, because it's okay if you give up 10 and 12-yard gains to A.J. Brown. You just don't want those backbreaking touchdowns off of play action that we've seen from him since he came back from the hamstring injury. And so that's not just on Cam or DJ. That's going to be on Geno Stone, assuming he's able to suit up. It's going to be on Jordan Battle. I think that rotation with Von Bell is going to continue, and Von Bell obviously too. So this secondary has to be ready for that and contain the explosives, because if you do that and you're making Hurts dink and dunk his way down the field and Saquon Barkley run for 4 yards and not 8, 10, 12, 50, he's capable of those 50-yard runs, well, then they're more likely to make a mistake. And that's obviously what we've seen over the past couple of weeks, is the Bengals forcing turnovers, forcing big plays on defense, something they didn't do in weeks 3 through 5.
I really think they caught a big break with, no pun intended, with Geno Stone on Sunday when he collided with Von Bell in the final 2 minutes of that game in Cleveland. I spoke to Geno on Monday in the locker room, and he said, yeah, it's sore, but I'll be all right. And then I asked him, have you played through more pain than this? And he said, oh, yeah, I've played through much more pain than this. They need Geno Stone playing at a pretty high level on Sunday if they're going to have a chance to beat the Eagles.
Yeah, and he's coming off of his best game. I really liked what I saw from Geno. And you go back to the rewatch, and obviously he had the interception. People will see that. And that was an easy pick. Hopefully that gets in him a rhythm there. But I think of the 7 tackles and coming down and making plays. You didn't notice him take bad angles like he did early in the year, missed tackles. You didn't really notice that, which is obviously what you want. And then also the trick play, Trags, where Nick Chubb flips it to Deshaun Watson.
I was just going to say, yes.
They throw it deep, and who's there? Geno Stone playing center field, making that play nearly impossible for Cedric Tillman.
That's the first thing I noticed on that. Yeah, that's the first, not to interrupt you here, but it's my podcast, so I'll do whatever the hell I want. But you know me. That's the first thing I noticed as I was sitting next to a James Rapien from BengalsTalk.com and SI.com in the press box. I said, they didn't get beat deep. They did not get fooled on that play at all. They didn't bite on it. And I thought, for Anarumo's defense, I thought that was a pretty significant moment right there.
Yeah, for sure. Especially you think about Nick Chubb being in the backfield and you're instantly thinking run. You just are. And I like the design by the Browns and for the Bengals not to get fooled. DJ Turner was right there too. I believe it was Turner in coverage. So you have both guys there. It's a heck of a play. And so hopefully things are slowing down for Geno Stone. We know he's a good player, had 7 interceptions last year, started really poorly over the first, I would say, 5 weeks. A little better against the Giants, much better against the Browns, and you want that to continue. And you're going to need it to continue. Let's be honest here. This Eagles offense, I know you could talk about the Nick Sirianni and all of these things and the new coordinator, and they have the talent. They have the talent to be
they
very explosive.
definitely have the
no
dudes.
doubt.
There's no question about that.
And it's a dudes league, Trags. Dudes league.
You have to have the players. You have to, and that's, frankly, that's what the Bengals have been kind of showing over the last couple of weeks. And the reason I say that is not because they're putting up tons of points. It's because they have their best players making the best plays when they need them to. And let's switch to the offensive side of the ball.
Yep.
Jamar Chase's touchdown, when you watch it on live in person, you don't notice that he actually broke off a play, a design play, and went to the corner, and Joe read that audible that that Jamar made on his own, and Joe found him perfectly for the touchdown. I thought that was an instance of your second best player or your two best players making a play when you need it, giving the Bengals the 14-6 lead. Then Burrow threw an absolute dot to T. Higgins over the middle. And I think T. Higgins knew there was nobody behind him because his first move was to cut upfield and there was nobody there. Those two plays to me indicate, like you said, James, it's a dudes league, but you need your best players to make scoring plays at critical moments.
Yeah, look, that is what these games are going to come down to. In these tight games, whether you're on the road against a divisional opponent or whether you're at home against Jalen Hurts in the Eagles, there's going to be a moment, and it might be in the second quarter. It's not necessarily, I think about the two plays you're describing. It's third quarter, and it's taking control of the game. Well, how do you do that? Well, 2nd and 5, Jamar Chase, you just find him, boom, touchdown, first offensive points of the game to go up 8. And then it's all right, we're driving again. Have a shot here. It's third down, big third down. If they hold us to 3, it feels much different than if we get 7. And let's throw a slant to T. And he does what he's done. He's off to a great start, man. I mean, he's playing it the best football. What he's done in camp, what he did in camp, I was like, man, T. Higgins is going to have a huge year, career year. And then he had the hamstring issue right before week 1, misses a couple of games. But he's really picked up where he left off in training camp. Maybe that first week coming back against the Commanders was a little slow. After that, I mean, he's just been really productive. You see the strength, the physicality. I mean, a slant in the past for T isn't turning into an explosive. It's just not. Well, it is this year, as you saw there. He knew, and I talked to him about it in the locker room after the game. He thought he was going to get popped there. And he's like, all right, let me adjust. And he adjusts, and boom, smooth sailing. He's able to absorb the contact and coast into the end zone for a huge touchdown. I mean, that really kind of sealed the deal, so to speak, and took the crowd out of the game, and everyone kind of expected the Bengals to win from that point on. And he's just been, I mean, he only had 4 catches, but his 4 catches were felt. And they're going to need him to continue to play at that level moving forward if they're going to climb all the way out of this hole and be a true playoff contender.
Why do you think it took a full 2 quarters plus for the running game to get going?
For the run, I mean, I still don't think it really got going. The running,
that's a fair point too. But I mean, the one explosive play seemed to like spark everything.
I think no doubt, and it was a huge run, and that's why you have to look at this. And people get annoyed with Zach Taylor about this, but the hold on Cordell Volson, well, that cost them points because that's an explosive run in the second quarter. Right. The Jamar Chase pass interference where you pick up the penalty. Well, that cost them points too. Like they very easily could have been up at least 13-0 at halftime. And I'm being pretty conservative there. And so then the momentum changes and then the Browns go get points. And that was a nice drive by Cleveland, no doubt. And so it's 7-6, but it feels like you left some points on the board there. I do think they were confident in their rushing attack, and it just wasn't consistent. And the thing that I want from this team, obviously you want the explosive runs, but just be efficient. Like your dudes are Joe, Jamar, and T on offense. And then you want your other guys, whether it's Andre, Gesicki, obviously the running game. So Chase Brown and Zach Moss, be efficient, average, and here's the number I want, Trags. So you can trademark this, you can steal it if you want. 4.3. This idea of 4 yards a carry.
4.2, but okay.
Yeah, 4.3 is what I want. And maybe that's 3 carries of 3 yards and then a 12-yard run. Or whatever the case is. And I know the math doesn't line up there. I'm fine with explosive runs kind of carrying you. Like if they had that explosive run in the first half and it doesn't get called back, you're feeling pretty good overall about the Bengals rushing attack on the day because you have those 2 big runs by Chase Brown, and then maybe you don't run it 3 straight times when you have that 50-yard field goal, because that's when the per average came down a significant amount when the Browns knew the Bengals were going to run it. So I'm not pressing panic on the Bengals running game, but I'm at 4.3. That's what I want. And I think it's because they are explosive, including Zach Moss. I think he's a better runner than people are realizing and is going to show that moving forward.
Zach Taylor was asked about this, James, on Monday, and he smiled, he laughed. He knew he couldn't really answer it the way he wanted to. But those 3 calls that you, well, 2 of the 3 that you brought up, the Cordell Volson hold, I thought he pancaked JOK to the turf. I didn't think there was a problem with that. I thought the hold against the Giants, that was more legitimate, but Sunday's hold had a big problem with. I had a big problem with the DJ Turner pass interference in the end zone.
Yep.
I thought he was in position. Zach said on Monday he maybe could have turned around and found the ball. Dorian Thompson Robinson's first throw coming in for obviously Deshaun Watson, and that was the pass interference call. Maybe DJ can get his body turned around and find the ball quicker. That wasn't pass interference to me. And then when Dan Horde, the voice of the Bengals, tweets out what he did about how horrible the pickup of the pass interference call on Jamar Chase was, it struck a nerve. And Dan and I spoke about it in the locker room on Monday. That ball fell inbounds about 7 to 8 yards over the head of Jamar Chase. That was not 15 yards out of bounds. That's uncatchable. We get that.
Yep.
And those 3 calls could have had a huge impact on that game on Sunday.
Yeah, Ron Torbert was on my winners and losers list on Cincinnati Bengals Talk on YouTube. For the first time ever, I put an official on there because those are huge calls. Like this idea, we've watched Jamar Chase for 4 years now. He's in year 4. If it's in the field of play, it's catchable. Period. Right. That's it. Because he's got the burst, he's got the ability to somehow pull it down. Like we've seen him make insane catches. You kidding me? That can't be picked up. And clearly contact, clearly catchable, and the call was made. That's what's crazy to me. It's one thing to have missed calls. Missed calls are much different because it's bang, bang. Maybe you just don't throw the flag for whatever reason and you think it's borderline. But after throwing the flag to pick it up, that means that, there's clear evidence. We saw something to pick it up.
Or they were buzzed on it by New York. And Zach said Monday he's waiting to hear exactly whether or not, I believe the term is like in a crew review or something like that, akin to what they use in Major League Baseball. But you can get buzzed in from New York and they can review it. And Zach didn't have an answer even on Monday to whether or not that was the case. And look, I'm not a conspiracy theorist when it comes to NFL officiating and all of that, but it leaves the door wide open for people to speculate what's the motivation there, right?
Yeah, and look, if New York buzzed, because that makes it way worse, by the way, even worse,
correct,
more egregious.
That's why Zach wants to know. Well, that's why we all want to know the answer to that.
And so if that's the case, and it was New York, then New York should be fined. They should have to donate X amount to whatever charity that Jamar Chase chooses. And I'm dead. The X amount can be 40 grand, let's say, because the Jamar Chase.
Well, I've got an idea. How about $18,654? Whatever that fine was for his celebration call against, I believe it was the Ravens 2 weeks ago.
There you go. Yeah.
How about that? How about wipe that one off the books?
Yeah, I mean, seriously, donate it to charity. By the way, for those wondering that didn't see the Dan Horde tweet, he tweeted, at 7:06 on Sunday night. It's 7 p.m. The game's been over for hours, and the Bengals won. And yet I'm still annoyed about that uncatchable pass call. Absurd. And when Dan, you're right, when Dan says that, if it was borderline, he wouldn't say that. That has 2.9 thousand likes on X, just to give you an idea of the people that saw that.
Yeah, I just think that, look, there's never going to, we can talk about this for hours and hours and days. That's never going to change the way the NFL views its officiating and its crew. It's just not. But the Bengals, I guess the gist of this is that the Bengals played through three critical calls that went against them and got the win. To me, that's a big positive.
No doubt. And to me, you could throw those in, but if you would have told me that they go 0 for 6 on third down in the first half, don't score in the first half, I would have said, all right, they lose. Because that means that they didn't start fast, that the Browns are just keeping them in check like they've always done in Cleveland. And that's that. And to their credit, and obviously Charlie Jones deserves a ton for getting them out early for 7-0. But outside of that, there was no backbreaking turnover, no backbreaking sack, no game-changing play like that. Like, they kept their composure, they were patient, and the defense hung in there. No one was panicking, which is important because if you're a team that started 1-4 and you're 2-4 and you're facing a must-win and you haven't won there in Cleveland and you're wanting to get off to this fast start, you haven't won there in 7 years, all of these things, well, you could be like, what the bleep is going on? And they didn't do that. They were composed, and then their dudes made plays, and they were able to get the win. And I do think that it sounds simple. It isn't simple. A lot of teams unravel in that situation.
No, and they didn't, and that is to their credit. I know you have a couple of we have to get going here, but I know you have a couple of stories up on bengalstalk.com. Obviously, Jay Morrison, a great addition, James. Excellent hire by you. Orlando Brown Jr.'s injury is murky, meaning the Bengals vet Cody Ford could make his first start at left tackle. That's a big deal this Sunday. And I think what we saw from Cody Ford on Sunday in the second half, when they were able to score 2 touchdowns with him at left tackle, I think that's a pretty good sign going forward if Orlando Brown cannot go on Sunday.
It was a good sign. They were doing a lot of quick game stuff, and it just changes. Losing Orlando Brown Jr. would be rough. Hopefully he can go and be effective. He was having a career year up to this point. I would seriously look, and this is one thing I wrote is, all right, well, go get, I mean, you lost Trent Brown, you lost Jackson Kirkland. Go get a real tackle. Like, go get someone, and there aren't a lot out there, but there are some guys out there and some veterans. And if they were willing to sign above the age of 30 Trent Brown and above the age of 30 Lawrence Guy, maybe they'll do it again at offensive tackle. I really would be looking for depth, even if Orlando can play, because Cody Ford isn't a left tackle. Let's be honest. He's not. He's a Band-Aid, and I get it. You had to use him to get through a game, which is fine. And it's not me knocking Cody Ford, but the reason you signed Trent Brown was to be that swing tackle when Amarius was able to get going and start for you. You lost Trent Brown. You lost a guy in Jackson Kirkland who was probably in the mix there. I would be looking and trying to find that $2 million offensive tackle that's out there, and we'll see if they do.
They really do need to address that in some form or fashion, unless you really believe there's something on the practice squad. But I think you need to be aggressive. I think you're absolutely right here, James, to have legitimate depth. We saw what they were willing to do at the defensive tackle position. Probably no reason they shouldn't be able to do it at left tackle as well. If Orlando Brown is out, even if he's not out, you do want an extra body there, to your point.
That was my point. Yeah. Like, even if he can go, shore up that line a bit, because it's been a strength. Like, the Bengals offensive line has been a topic for years, and now it really does feel like it's a strength. Don't let a possible injury completely derail that. And that's what it does. Like, if you're trotting out Cody Ford for the next 4 weeks, that's a liability. It's going to change your offense, and that's a rough spot to be in. And I don't think that'll be the case with Orlando, but injuries happen. And so you want to add that insurance policy ahead of time if you can.
BengalsTalk.com. What else do you want? Enter the Jungle is a podcast you do with Andrew Fox Miller. What else?
Cincinnati Bengals Talk on YouTube, the Locked On Bengals podcast, and you mentioned it, BengalsTalk.com.
You are the best, James. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're the man. Thank you, Trags.
All right. He is James Rapien of BengalsTalk.com. He can be followed all over the internet for terrific Bengals content, whatever you need, whatever time of day. Head to James Rapien's multiple sites for his unique perspective on the Cincinnati Bengals. He's James Rapien. My name is Mike Petralia, and this has been the Jungle Roar podcast, brought to you by the fine folks at Prize Picks and the Game Time app. Until next time, keep that jungle roaring.